All right, cats and kittens, so this is what's happening today. Pretty much packed up for the move, but Alton Pierce on Instagram asked me, he said, I'll put this up on the screen, he basically wanted to know how I would put a pedal board together from scratch, because I do change pedal boards often, and a lot of the time that's so I don't repeat myself and I don't get bored with the sounds. However, this was a good question from Alton, because I generally use similar approaches. There's some things that I need in every pedal board. So let's start with that. And secondly, how do I put it together? What choices do I make about order and whatnot? And why do I do it? So we're gonna go over that. I'm gonna take this Ghostfire, it's like 18 by 12, I think, pretty much pedal board. I'm gonna take this Chox DC7. I have one loose that's not packed up yet and a bunch of cables. And I have some pedals. That have not been packed away yet because I found them in the closet. And I'm like, oh, I haven't packed them away yet. And we're gonna try to use some of those. And the enhancifier is new, so, maybe we'll get a chance to use that. And I was talking about the Lauren Audio Mustang GT, which I love to have on almost every board. So anyway, let's put a board together. You'll have an overhead view, at least as well as I can do in the current situation, with everything kind of packed away, and then you'll have me talking to you. So let's get started. Let's put together a pedal board. First things first, let's take the Ghostfire out of the case. Something I always do with every pedal board is I put dual lock underneath to snap in the power supply. And depending on what side of the stage I plan on being, whether I want the power cable coming out to my left or to my right, with the London Experimental Ensemble, I'm the last person in the circle, the semicircle that we do on the left, so I like the power supply going to the left, so I'm gonna make that choice right now. And we'll put that, snap that in right here. Boom. Snapped in, right? Now let's start populating this sucker. So, what do I like to do first? Well, first off, you may have noticed if you've watched my videos before, I like to do a short slap delay / doubler up front. To me, it makes a huge difference. If you'll look at this photo on your screen right now, you'll see my current lap steel board, and I'm using the Slow Loris for this purpose. The Slow Loris has some wobbly modulation and short slap. I don't always need to have that much modulation, but I do like to have a little bit of movement just as the doubler part and then the slap. And I prefer to have it before dirt, because that also gives it some extra added dimension, in my opinion. So this does all those things at once. This just came in today. This is the Templo Devices Real Deal A, and with these settings, you will get a short, dirty slap. Now, if you, it's also set up the second delay so that if you pressed both delays, you're gonna get a longer delay as well as the shorter delay, and it sounds boss. But for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do one delay short and one delay slightly shorter. So the first delay is short, and the second delay, not quite as short, but still in the slap category. And the gain, it should be pretty dirty. The red light should be going on. You'll see this later when we test the board. And so you have a little bit of dirt, and then you have the dual delays kind of giving you that doubly effect with a slap. Now, the first delay all the way down is just super short. So let's see how this works when we test it later. So this goes first. You know what? That can go up top. That can go up top because it's always on. So won't need to touch that. Always on stuff on these tiered boards, 2-level boards. I like the always on stuff to be on the top shelf because that way I'm not reaching over to them all the time when I'm playing lap steel sitting down, or even if I was playing regular guitar standing up. I don't want to be reaching over stuff. So always on, top shelf. So we put that first. Then we have to make a decision here, because do we want the enhancifier next? We got to figure out room, how much room we're going to have. From what I've heard of the Real Deal A, that gives me a good bit of crunch where I've got that set. And I might not need more crunch than that. So to save space, we might not use the enhancifier. We'll leave it there for now, but that could go. But definitely the Mustang GT is next. So we'll put that. And actually, since this is going to be potentially on or off, that's how I use it. I use it as like a color thing, a boost gritty color thing. We're going to put that down on the lower level. The enhancifier would technically be there too, but that's sort of an always on thing, but it is grittier than the GT, the Mustang GT. We're gonna have to play that by ear. So then next in the chain, I would usually put, and if you look to the picture again on your screen of my current lap steel board, I would normally put a sampler, pitch, granular type device there. And that would be the Red Panda Tensor. Or it could be the Montreal Assembly Count to 5. Both are valid. One is on that board, the other one's put away. So we're gonna use a modified Boss DD6. The modifications are, it's got the dark mod so that it's got the more analog vibe, and it's got a feedback knob. However, I'm using it in the hold function, so I'm using this for short sampling, but most of the time it would be the Red Panda Tensor here, but sometimes I like to have this and the Red Panda Tensor. I just like to have some little micro sampling thing that's not on all the time. The Chase Bliss Mood is also excellent for this, or anything by David Rollo, any Drollo product, you know, and he's responsible for that half of the mood. I like having that. But if I really had enough room, it would probably be this and one of those devices. So let's just use this for now. That will go next on the bottom row because we're gonna be stepping on it a lot, right? Right. Then you gotta start talking about modulation. And for modulation, if you notice the picture of my current board, I have a couple of different choices, but I have the Alexander syntax error, and I also have Catlin bred bitters. So I'm not gonna pull those off of that board. What's the point of that? We're gonna put this a labs, and this one's gonna be set to ring mod. But it also sounds great. $35 at Amazon. It's incredible, and it's stereo. But we're not using it in stereo. But we're gonna put this one in ring mod. Why? Because we have something else for modulation. And I like blending modulation. I also like blending ring mod with modulation, whether that modulation be a wah or a filter before it, or something after it, because magical things happen when you combine them. That's another little one of my secrets. It's not really a secret. But anyway, we'll put that down in ring mod mode. And then we're going to pull. This is one of my favorite pedals of all time. Not that easy to get. Made in Stoke Newington, London. This is the Intensive Care Audio. Look at that, it comes in an NHS bag, National Health Service. Awesome. The Fiddle Eater. This thing is wild, woolly, and wonderful. And because it's got tap tempo and there's some delay-ish built into it, by hitting the tap tempo, sounds go crazy with this thing. So that's going to go after the elabs, right? Then we're going to keep this fairly simple, I think. Then you need delay, right? Okay, well, I had to pull this one out of one of the boxes because it's one of my favorite new delays. It is getting shredded paper all over the place after I just cleaned the joint. It is the London Fog by Coffee Pedals. This thing sounds amazing. It's a great delay. I pulled it out because it's so cool. It's not expensive. By the way, none of these are super duper expensive. I mean, some of them can be considered boutique, but even those are like $200, $250 max, which I don't consider that too insane when you consider what some effects go for these days. So my delay of choice is the Coffee Pedals London Fog. Let's put that down. And that'll be our last on the first row. And you know what? We might get to use the enhancifier because we have room, as you can see. Yeah, you can see from the overhead view, if I keep the enhancifier, we have room. And that's good because we're going to use 2 reverbs. I almost always use 2 reverbs because I just find it really, really hard to get the sounds I want from one reverb. Currently on the lap steel board, I am achieving that with the Big Sky MX, but that's after importing IRs of my own, doing lots of tweaking and EQing, and having many choices, which is one of the reasons I like the Big Star MX, is that I can switch between things really quickly, and I can add like tremolo to the same sound on the same patch, right? So A is without tremolo, B is with, and then I can switch patches very quickly. But in this case, we're gonna put at the end of our chain, the Meris Mercury 7. That'll go on the end. And why on the end? Because just before it, we're gonna put the afterneath. And we're going to combine the afterneath and the Mercury 7. Not that there's anything wrong with the Mercury 7, but the reflections of the afterneath are so unique and special that I want to take advantage of those sometimes. And in essence, this is what I will add. I will have the Mercury 7 on all the time, and then add this when I want it to be bigger and bouncier and broader. And this is another trick we'll get to in a second. Trick. Come on, it's not really a trick. But I love to use expression pedals. So I like devices that utilize expression pedals. I don't have too many of them on the board right now, but normally I do. I'll have 2 to 3 expression pedals. I'll even use an expression slider on my lap steel, as you've seen before, because any way that I can control sounds without doing too much and using my feet and without interrupting my performance, to me, that's a win-win. So this has expression for the pitch, which we will utilize. So there you go. That should be a pretty nifty little board. That's a pretty nifty little board. I like all of this. These are great. And I think you will enjoy how this sounds. The enhancifier could be replaced by a handful of other effects that could be useful. Perhaps another, if I had the room and it wasn't put away, another granular microsampler, that would be cool. But since we don't have that, we're going with what we have. This is kind of the mindset I'm using to put this stuff together. So let me wire this all up and power it all up, and then I will throw it down and do a performance, and we'll have a camera on the pedal board as well as me. We'll just make it short, like a 5-minute little thing, so I can go through all the sounds for you and you can see the new pedal board. Thanks, Alton Pierce, for asking me to do this video. I hope you guys dig it. All right, we'll see you in a few. All right, here we are, we're back. One thing we didn't talk about when I was putting the board together is some of you perhaps might want to put a buffer somewhere in line. But if you have buffers, like the Boss pedals have excellent buffers, TC Electronics have switchable buffers that you can do in the app, on or off, true bypass or buffered, and a lot of pedals have buffers, so there are a lot of options. I would suggest listening and seeing if you need it first. I know I have a couple of buffers here in line, one at the beginning and one at the end, so I probably don't need it, but True Tone sells the little buffer for 50 bucks. You can put it on under your board. And yes, it takes power, so you need a power jack for it, an outlet for it, but it's 50 bucks and they sound great and you don't need to take up space on your board. So that's one option, but we're not gonna deal with that. So we don't need it. Hopefully you can see this board, ignore the part of the old board that's kind of in the way. It's just the one at my feet. And this is what it sounds like with just the Mercury 7 from Meris on. Now I'm going to bring the Templo Devices Real Deal preamp and dual. This case it'll be dual slap. It's a nice little grit in there, and the slightly offset dual slap for doubling. I'll turn it off. On. Right? So before I bring the enhancifier on, because that brings a lot of chunk, let's try the Mustang GT from Lauren Audio. Off. On. Love it. But let's turn it off and bring the enhancifier in. This is without it. With it. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's glorious. I think I would save that for when I need it. So in this case, I would leave the Lauren audio on, but let's try the enhancer on and the Lauren audio. So this is just the enhancer. This is with the Lauren. It almost, yeah, it conditions the enhancer, but the enhancer does what they say, like without both. The enhancer, it's not just level, it's grit. So I would save that, for me, I would save that for when I need it as like, you know, as an overdrive. When I want it to sound overdrivey and gritty and textured. But for the most part, I will leave the Lauren Audio Mustang GT on. So next is the Boss DD6, the modified Boss DD6 by Loophole Pedals. This is just going to be a stutter glitch. Right? That's it. It can also be a fantastic delay because of the mods and the feedback feature that's right on top. So it's there. This is the Alabs with ring mod mode. But where that really works, fortunately I left my wah pedal here. Dig this. There's just something about a wah pedal and a ring mod to me. Now, we'll really have some fun because this is the Fiddle Eater by Intensive Care Effects. Hold on. I warned you. And then the London Fog delay. And there's so many different, you can make it do reverse. Here's reverse. You can make it do forward and reverse. I just think it's a beautiful delay. And then, yeah, and then you bring in the afterneath for extra texture. I don't know, it sounds pretty good. But like I said, I could probably do with one more textural, granular, micro-sampley thing, whether it's a tensor or the onward or the mood or a Montreal assembly count to 5. That would be my preference, but I could use this. And it has all the elements I need. If I wanted to go crazy, I could. I could bring more grit out with the Real Deal A preamp delay. It's beautiful. And thus, I wouldn't need the enhancifier, so I could put some other stuff. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. That's how I would just roughly put together a board quickly and fulfill the needs that I normally require to do my thing, whatever that is. And I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.